Now to a first alert from the Wisconsin Better Business Bureau, a new report from the agency revealing the top riskiest scams. Kristen Allen at the First Alert Safety Desk. And this morning, Kristen, people can end up losing a lot of money.
Absolutely, and that's why we want to get these on your radar. According to the Wisconsin Better Business Bureau, more than 80% of people were targeted by investment and cryptocurrency scams, and these can be especially devastating, and that tops the list of the riskiest scams. This type of scam can involve financial grooming, where a scammer spends months or weeks building trust with their victim, then encouraging the person to try investing, often in cryptocurrency. It starts out small, but then as the trust builds, the scammer encourages the person to invest more money. The average dollar loss in these scams is about $5,000. Employment scams make up about 14% of all reported scams, and romance and friendship scams round out the top three, where the scammer spends a period of time building trust and relationship with a victim, then asking for money. Falling victim to a scam, any of these scams really, can result in more than just loss of money, but also impact your mental health.
Their disappointment at the time lost in regard to these scams, and also personal information that they've lost as well. So, a lot of emotions go along with scams. People have reported feeling anger and sadness, even depression, anxiety, of course, shame and embarrassment.
Also, a couple things to watch out for, according to the Better Business Bureau. The most impersonated organizations include agencies like Publishers Clearinghouse, the U.S. Postal Service, and PayPal. Tammy?